My sister humiliated me, spat in my face, and kissed my husband during our wedding. My parents held me responsible. So, I had her arrested, fired, and cut out of my life for good. I'm Amelia, 28, and I was preparing to marry my wonderful fiancé, Marcus, who's 30. My younger sister, Clara, 25, has always been the family's golden child. Every success I had, she had to outshine. Everything I wanted, she had to claim. But this time, she crossed a line. Let me give you an idea of who Clara is. She's beautiful, I'll admit that. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the kind of person who never had to work hard for attention because it was handed to her naturally. My parents adored her as if she walked on water. When Clara got AC in college, everyone applauded her effort. When I graduated summa cum laude, people asked why I couldn't be more well-rounded like her. When Clara was arrested for drunk driving at 22, my parents blamed the system and paid for the best attorney available. Meanwhile, when I earned a promotion to senior manager at my marketing firm, they asked if I could really handle the stress and suggested maybe I should focus on finding a husband instead. That's how things always were. Marcus and I had been together for 4 years. He proposed during a spring trip to Hawaii on the beach. It was magical. He's kind, funny, successful, but most importantly, he loves me for me. Not as Clara's older sister, not as the responsible one, just me. But when we announced our engagement, the first thing my family asked was, well, does Clara like him? That should have been my warning. Wedding planning was a nightmare. Clara inserted herself into every decision. She wanted to be maid of honor, even though Sophie, my best friend since high school, already held that place. She demanded approval of the color scheme, worried it wouldn't suit her complexion. She even suggested changing the venue because she didn't think it was classy enough for our family. And then, 2 months before the wedding, Clara started making remarks about Marcus. He's so funny, Amelia. You're lucky. Marcus really understands my sense of humor. We have so much in common. She began showing up uninvited at our place, always when Marcus was there, wearing revealing outfits, laughing too loudly at his jokes, finding excuses to touch his arm. Marcus told me right away. Your sister's acting really strange, he said after Clara spent 3 hours at our house pretending to help with invitations, but hogging all his attention. She keeps saying things like we'd make a great couple. Today she even asked me what I would have done if I'd met her first. I confronted Clara, but she just smirked. You're paranoid, Amelia. I'm just bonding with my future brother-in-law. Isn't that what family does? When I told my parents, they brushed me off. Clara's just excited for your wedding, Mom said. You're being jealous and possessive. It doesn't look good on a bride. Dad was worse. Your sister's young and social. Marcus chose you, didn't he? At the rehearsal dinner, Clara gave a maid of honor speech that was supposed to be about me, but instead she talked about her own dreams of marriage and love. She ended with, I just hope Marcus knows how lucky he is to join our family. Not yours, Amelia, our family. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, tomorrow we'll be married, and this will all be behind us. If only we had known. The wedding day itself was perfect, at first. October 15th, crisp autumn skies at the Willowbrook Country Club. I wore my grandmother's lace gown. White roses and eucalyptus filled the room exactly as I imagined. Everything seemed flawless. Clara was behaving oddly that morning, giggling and muttering things like, today's going to be very interesting. Some people will be shocked. I ignored her, too wrapped up in my own joy. The ceremony was beautiful. Marcus looked incredible in his navy suit. As I walked down the aisle, the way he looked at me made me feel like the only woman alive. We exchanged personal vows. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. Except Clara, who looked like she was plotting. Then came the photos. I was standing with Marcus, glowing with happiness, when Clara approached. I thought she wanted to congratulate us, or join a picture. Instead, she stared me down and spat directly in my face. The photographer caught the moment, my stunned expression, saliva dripping down my cheek, my flawless makeup ruined. Before I could react, Clara grabbed Marcus, pulled his face toward hers, and kissed him forcefully. It wasn't a peck, it was aggressive, possessive. He froze in shock, then shoved her away. Clara smirked. "Congrats, brother-in-law," she whispered, as if nothing happened. Everyone was stunned. Sophie rushed over with tissues. Marcus, horrified, wiped his lips and stepped protectively in front of me. "Clara, what the hell is wrong with you?" My parents rushed over, not to comfort me, but to defend her. "She's drunk," Mom insisted, clutching Clara's arm. "Too much champagne," Dad added quickly. "It was just a mistake, right, Clara? You didn't mean it," I shouted, trembling. "She just spat on me and kissed my husband on my wedding day." Mom turned on me, furious. "How dare you talk to Clara like that? She made a mistake." "A mistake?" I was stunned. "She deliberately spat in my face." Dad stepped forward, red with anger, but at me. "Stop being dramatic, Amelia. It's your wedding day. Leave your sister alone." My brother Derek chimed in. "Some brides just can't handle a little fun." Uncle Trevor nodded. "Some people ruin their own weddings." Aunt Celeste smirked. Finally, someone's being honest about her drama. Meanwhile, Clara just stood there, grinning with satisfaction. She wasn't drunk. Her eyes were sharp, her movements deliberate. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she was savoring every second of my humiliation. Guests began whispering, some recording on their phones. My wedding was turning into a public spectacle. But here's what my family never understood about me. I don't break. I adapt. I plan. Something inside me snapped into focus. I calmly wiped my face, straightened my dress, and smiled. "You're right," I said softly. "Clara's drunk. People make mistakes when they're drunk. So, I forgive her." My parents looked relieved. Clara looked confused but smug. Marcus held my hand tightly, trusting me. "In fact," I continued, "we should make sure Clara gets the help she needs." "Sophie, could you please call the police? Report a drunk and disorderly guest? I'm worried for Clara's safety." Sophie instantly understood and reached for her phone. "No, wait," Mom protested. "That's not necessary, she's fine." "Oh, but you just said she was drunk," I replied sweetly. "And drunk people who spit on brides and kiss grooms without consent need help, don't they? That's assault and sexual harassment. If she's drunk, she clearly needs medical care. Maybe even detox." Dad barked, "Amelia, don't be ridiculous." "Ridiculous?" I raised my voice, making sure every guest heard me. "My sister just assaulted me and harassed my husband at my wedding, and I'm ridiculous for wanting to get her help." Clara's smugness started to fade. "I'm not drunk," she blurted. "Oh." I turned to her. "So you spat on me and kissed my husband completely sober? That's even worse, isn't it?" The guests murmured. Marcus' mother, Paula, had her phone out, recording everything. "Clara, just apologize and say you were confused," Mom begged. But I wasn't done. "Actually, we need to handle this properly. Marcus, do you want to press charges for sexual assault?" Marcus, seething, stepped forward. "Yes, I do. I never consented to that kiss. I want it on record." "Amelia, stop this nonsense," Dad hissed. I laughed bitterly. "Nonsense? You want to know what's nonsense, Dad? Spending $30,000 on a wedding only for my sister to spit on me and kiss my husband while you defend her. Being told I'm attention-seeking on my own wedding day. Being told to leave my sister alone after she publicly humiliates me." I turned to the crowd, who were watching like it was the world's most awkward reality show. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. As you can see, my family believes spitting on the bride and kissing the groom without consent is just a bit of fun, and that I'm overreacting. Thank you all for coming to what should have been the happiest day of my life." The room buzzed with discomfort. Guests were visibly unsettled, and many began siding with me. Many of Marcus's relatives were shaking their heads in disgust at my family's behavior. Sophie had already called the police, and I spotted 2 officers making their way toward us. Clara noticed them too, and for the first time, I saw fear flicker across her face. "Amelia, please," she stammered, her once smug tone replaced with panic. I was only joking. Joking? I asked, my voice sharp. So, you weren't drunk then? You're just someone who thinks assault is funny. The lead officer, Morales, stepped forward and asked what had happened. I explained calmly, my sister spit on me during my wedding and then kissed my husband without his consent. My family claims she was drunk and it was all a mistake, but she just admitted she was joking, which means she was sober and acted deliberately. Officer Morales glanced at my ruined dress, then turned to Marcus, who nodded firmly. I did not consent to that kiss, Marcus said without hesitation. I want to press charges. This is absurd. My mother jumped in, flustered. Officers, it's just a family misunderstanding. Ma'am, Morales replied evenly. Assault is still assault, even among relatives. And if alcohol was involved, that doesn't excuse it. It actually makes it worse. The officers began taking statements from witnesses, including the photographer, who provided undeniable photos of the entire ordeal. The evidence was crystal clear. But I wasn't finished, not even close. While the police dealt with Clara, who was now sobbing and insisting it was all a misunderstanding, I made my way to the DJ booth and asked for the microphone. My voice rang out over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. But I need to address what just happened. The entire reception went still. Even the catering staff froze mid-step. My sister Clara just spat in my face and kissed my husband without his consent. When I stood up against it, my parents defended her and accused me of being dramatic and attention-seeking. They told me I was ruining my own wedding by objecting to being assaulted. I saw my parents' faces turn crimson with embarrassment and anger, but I kept going. I need everyone here to understand something. All my life, I've been told Clara's feelings, Clara's needs, and Clara's behavior were more important than mine. I was always expected to forgive, to excuse, to be the bigger person. Well, on my wedding day, I'm done. The crowd was utterly silent. Clara, Mom, Dad, Derek, Uncle Trevor, Aunt Celeste, you are no longer welcome here. Security will escort you out. And not just from my wedding, but from my life. Right on cue, the security guard Sophie had quietly arranged appeared. Amelia, you can't be serious, my mother cried, her voice cracking. I'm dead serious, I answered coldly. I've spent 28 years watching you prioritize Clara over basic decency. Today was the last straw. By then, Officer Morales was fastening handcuffs around Clara's wrists. Her arrogance had completely vanished. She was crying, begging. This isn't over. You'll regret this. No, I told her firmly, locking eyes with her. I won't. My father tried to storm toward me, but Marcus stepped in front. You heard my wife, he said firmly. Leave. This is madness, Dad barked. All over one little mistake. Mistake. I laughed bitterly. Dad, your daughter spat in my face and sexually assaulted my husband at my wedding. The only mistake was ever expecting you to act like parents instead of Clara's personal PR team. Security dragged them all out. I heard my mother wailing, my father yelling that I was destroying the family. Derek shouted that I was overreacting. Uncle Trevor muttered that I was vindictive, while Aunt Celeste loudly declared I'd always been jealous of Clara. But once they were gone, something incredible happened. The atmosphere lifted instantly. Marcus's family and our true friends surrounded us with love and support. His mom, Paula, handed me her lipstick so I could fix my makeup. His dad, Raymond, gave a heartfelt toast about how happy he was to welcome me into a family that valued me. Sophie even arranged for the photographer to retake wedding party photos without my toxic relatives. The best part? 3 of my cousins, who had watched the entire spectacle with growing disgust, approached me. Amelia, my cousin Leah said, we've wanted to tell you this for years. The way your parents treat you compared to Clara is disgraceful. We're proud of you for standing up for yourself. Miles, another cousin, chimed in. We've talked about it behind closed doors for ages. Clara's spoiled, and your parents enable her. What she did today was unforgivable. Even my grandmother, my father's mother, 89 years old and quiet all evening, came to me during the father-daughter dance that Marcus's dad stepped in to share. She leaned close and whispered, "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I've seen this family dynamic for decades. It needed to end. You did the right thing." But my revenge wasn't finished yet. While Clara was being hauled off by the police and my parents were escorted out, I'd asked Sophie to make some important phone calls. The first was to Trent, Clara's boyfriend of 2 years, who hadn't been able to attend the wedding because of work. Sophie told him his girlfriend had just been arrested for assaulting the bride and sexually harassing the groom. Trent, who apparently already had suspicions about Clara, broke up with her on the spot. He told Sophie he'd be collecting his things from her apartment the very next day. Next, Sophie contacted Clara's workplace, a luxury boutique that prides itself on image and class. They were horrified to hear one of their employees had been arrested for assault at a wedding. Sophie made sure they knew there was photo and video proof that could easily end up on social media. Finally, Sophie reached out to a local society reporter, Jenna Sharp, who was already scheduled to cover our wedding because Marcus's family is prominent in the community. Jenna was thrilled to have a scoop: a maid of honor arrested for attacking the bride and groom. The following morning, as Marcus and I enjoyed our first day as newlyweds in our hotel suite, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Clara's first call came from jail. "Amelia, you have to help me," she begged. "They're saying I could be charged with assault and sexual harassment. I could go to jail, lose my job. Trent dumped me. Please drop the charges. You made your choice when you decided to humiliate me and assault Marcus on my wedding day," I told her evenly. "Now you get to face the consequences." "But I'm your sister," she cried. "Sisters don't spit on each other's faces. Sisters don't sexually assault each other's husbands," I replied coldly. "You stopped being my sister the second you did that." I hung up. The next call came from my mother, sobbing. "Amelia, how could you do this to your own family? Clara's in jail. Do you know how humiliating this is? Do I know how humiliating this is?" I snapped. "Mom, your daughter spat on me in front of 200 people and kissed my husband against his will. And you're worried about embarrassment? She made a mistake. People make mistakes."
"No, Mom."
Mistakes are forgetting an RSVP or wearing mismatched shoes. Spitting on your sister and sexually assaulting her husband is not a mistake, it's a decision. And you choosing to defend her instead of me tells me exactly where I stand in this family. I hung up. Dad's call was next, his tone furious. "Amelia, this vindictive nonsense has to stop. Your sister needs help, not jail time." "You're right," I said calmly. "She does need help, professional help. Maybe time behind bars will finally give her space to reflect." "This is going too far. Let me ask you something, Dad. If Clara had spat on and kissed a stranger's husband at their wedding, would you be defending her?" Silence. "The only difference is I'm your daughter too, but apparently that matters less than Clara's comfort. I'm done enabling this family's dysfunction." I ended the call and blocked his number. Derek called to say I was ruining Clara's life. Uncle Trevor accused me of tearing the family apart. Aunt Celeste insisted I was hateful and jealous. I blocked them all. Then 3 days later, the bomb dropped. Jenna Sharp's story ran in the Willowbrook Gazette with the headline, "Local Wedding Turns Ugly as Maid of Honor Assaults Bride and Groom." The paper included photos of Clara spitting on me and kissing Marcus, along with quotes from anonymous guests about my parents' appalling defense of her. It laid bare the toxic family dynamic and painted me as the bride who finally stood up for herself. Within hours, regional outlets picked up the story. It was trending all over local social media. Clara's employer fired her the same day. Her landlord, after seeing the coverage, refused to renew her lease. Friends began distancing themselves publicly online. But that was only the beginning. Clara was formally charged with 2 counts of assault and 1 count of sexual harassment. Her court date was set for December 15th, exactly 2 months after my wedding. Despite hiring an attorney, the mountain of photo and video evidence made her defense look hopeless. My parents tried to pressure me to drop the charges, even showing up at my office. I had security escort them out and immediately filed for a restraining order. The hearing was deeply satisfying. After reviewing the evidence and hearing multiple witness testimonies, the judge issued a 1-year restraining order against both Clara and my parents for harassment. Mrs. Watson, the judge said directly to me, "This court finds your family's conduct unacceptable. No one should endure assault and then be told they're overreacting." Marcus and I then left for our honeymoon in Italy. It was pure bliss, no drama, no Clara, just the two of us celebrating our marriage in peace. When we came back, though, I learned Clara had taken to social media again, posting rants about how I was jealous, that I had set her up, that she was the real victim. Friends sent me screenshots. So, I did the obvious thing. I compiled all of her posts, added them to my evidence folder, and sent them straight to her lawyer as proof of continued harassment. From what I heard, her attorney was furious. By the time Clara's trial began, her case was a complete mess. The prosecutor presented the photos, the videos, witness statements, and even her social media posts. Clara's only defense was, "It was just a joke, and my sister's always been jealous of me." Her lawyer tried to paint me as spiteful and Clara as a young woman who made one silly mistake after drinking. But then, something amazing happened. Derek King, our wedding photographer, had captured far more than the assault. His candid shots showed Clara's behavior throughout the day, clearly sober, smirking, plotting. One photo even showed her whispering to a guest, pointing at me, as if to say, "Watch this." And then came Marcus's testimony. It was powerful. He recounted Chloe's months of inappropriate conduct leading up to the wedding, her repeated attempts to lure him, and how he felt violated when she forced herself onto him. "Your Honor," he stated firmly, "this wasn't some drunken lapse in judgment. This was a deliberate assault on my wife and on our marriage, carried out by someone who has spent years trying to sabotage Amelia's happiness." When it was my turn, my testimony focused on the long-standing dysfunction in our family and how this event was simply the breaking point after decades of being shown that my feelings would always come second to Chloe's. "I'm not here out of spite," I told the judge. "I'm here because actions should have consequences, and in my family, Chloe's behavior never did. It's time someone held her accountable." Chloe was convicted on every charge. Though she insisted she hadn't been intoxicated, the court sentenced her to 6 months in jail, suspended, 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory anger management and alcohol counseling, plus restitution for the cost of replacing my outfit and for the photographer's additional work. The most satisfying part, though, was the special probation condition. She was forbidden from contacting me or Marcus, or even mentioning us online. Any slip-up would immediately trigger her full 6-month jail term. The fallout was even more than I could have imagined. Chloe's life unraveled. Every retail job she applied for turned her away because of her record, so she was forced to move back in with our parents. Ironic, since they now had to live with the consequences of the very behavior they'd spent years excusing. Trent broke up with her and made sure their entire friend group knew why. Chloe was left completely isolated. Her Instagram following collapsed from 3,000 down to around 200, mostly relatives who felt obligated to stay connected. My parents' own social standing suffered, too. Their country club friends began asking uncomfortable questions. My father lost a business deal after the potential partner's wife, who had witnessed Chloe's scene at the wedding, decided against it. My mother was asked to resign from her charity board, something she had taken great pride in. Months later, Derek, Uncle Trevor, and Aunt Celeste tried to reconcile, but I stood firm. I sent them all the same email. "You chose your side when you defended assault and blamed the victim. I'm choosing mine by not allowing people who think that's acceptable into my life." And then came the moment that still makes me smile whenever I recall it. 6 months after the wedding, Chloe violated her probation by creating a fake Instagram account. She posted a long rant calling me crazy, claiming I had ruined her life for no reason, and painting me as a jealous sister who couldn't handle her being prettier. Someone screenshotted it and sent it to me. I forwarded it to the prosecutor, and Chloe ended up serving 3 months in real jail. When she got out, she was no longer the arrogant person she had once been. She looked defeated, carrying herself with a heaviness that almost made me pity her. Almost. She even tried to reach me again, sending a letter through my grandmother. Amelia, it read, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I was jealous, I was stupid, and I made terrible choices. I've lost everything, and I know that's on me. I'm not asking for forgiveness, because I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I finally understand the pain I caused you, not just on that day, but throughout our entire lives. I hope you're happy now. I read it once and threw it away. Marcus and I had been married 8 months at that point, and our life was incredible. We bought a beautiful home across town, far away from my parents' neighborhood. We built friendships with people who genuinely respected and supported us. We were planning to start a family within the year. My grandmother, disgusted by the whole ordeal, revised her will to leave her house to me alone instead of splitting it with Chloe. She had never understood the meaning of family, but I did. In fact, 3 relatives cut ties with my parents and Chloe completely, becoming the siblings I had always wished for. Marcus's family also fully embraced me. His mother often tells people she finally has the daughter she always wanted, and his father jokes that he's relieved not to deal with my dysfunctional relatives anymore. A month ago, I was promoted to regional manager. Without thinking, I called Marcus's mother to share the news, instead of my own. That was the moment I realized just how much better my life had become without my toxic family. Through the grapevine, I heard that Chloe eventually landed a job at a grocery store 2 towns away. She lives in a tiny studio apartment and, according to my cousin Leah, has gained a lot of weight. She rarely leaves home except to go to work. My parents, meanwhile, are now in marriage counseling because the stress has fractured their relationship. Dad blames Mom for raising Chloe poorly, while Mom accuses Dad of failing to step up when it mattered. They're both right in different ways. The most ironic part came about 4 months after the wedding, when my mother sent me a Christmas card as if nothing had ever happened. Inside she wrote, "We miss you. Chloe is doing much better now. Maybe it's time to put this behind us. Love, Mom and Dad." I returned it with a note of my own. You missed the point completely. The problem was never just Chloe's actions. The problem was how you responded to them. You taught me my feelings didn't matter, and that I should tolerate abuse for the sake of family peace. I finally learned that lesson, but not in the way you wanted. I never heard back. Still, the ripple effects of that day continued in ways I hadn't expected. The story spread throughout the community, and more people started coming forward about their own experiences with Chloe. It turned out I wasn't her only victim. Sophie told me 3 other women from high school reached out after the TV coverage. One, Anna, said Chloe had destroyed her senior year relationship by spreading lies about her cheating. Another, Renee, revealed that Chloe had stolen her scholarship essay and submitted it as her own, costing Renee a full ride to college. A third, Monica, claimed Chloe had keyed her car after Monica was voted prom queen over her. The pattern was undeniable. Chloe had spent years targeting anyone she saw as competition or who had something she wanted. The difference this time was that she went after someone who finally fought back. Caleb, Marcus's best man, later told me something that made my blood boil. 2 weeks before the wedding, Chloe had shown up uninvited to the bachelor party. She cornered Marcus in the bathroom, telling him I wasn't the right woman for him and that she could make him happier. Marcus told her to leave, and Caleb backed him up. Caleb admitted he hadn't wanted to upset me before the wedding, so he kept quiet. I should have told you, Marcus confessed when it came out. I thought if I ignore her, she'd stop. It's not your fault, I told him. Chloe is a skilled manipulator. She spent years pushing limits because everyone makes excuses for her. That revelation only reinforced that I'd made the right decision. Her attack wasn't impulsive, it was planned. People sometimes ask if I regret how I handled things. Do I think I went too far? Do I miss my family? My answers are no, and occasionally. I don't regret defending myself. I don't regret refusing to pretend that what she did was harmless fun. And I certainly don't regret valuing my dignity over keeping the so-called peace. Do I miss the idea of a supportive family? Of course. But I can't miss what I never truly had. What I had was a group of people who continually chose one person's comfort over everyone else's basic rights. Chloe taught me lessons she never meant to, that some people will test boundaries endlessly until someone tells them no, that enablers are just as destructive as the abusers they protect, and that sometimes, if you stop carrying someone else's trash, it takes itself out. Today, Marcus and I are thriving. We're planning a vow renewal for our first anniversary, inviting only those who genuinely love and respect us. My guest list may be smaller, but it's far better. Chloe, as far as I know, is still at that grocery store, living alone and reaping the consequences of her choices. My parents still visit her every Sunday, and according to Leah, these visits usually end with Chloe crying about her life and my parents agreeing that I'm the villain for refusing to forgive her. They'll never understand. But I do. I know I deserve basic respect, and I don't have to accept anything less just because of shared DNA. The best revenge isn't retaliation, it's freedom. And I am finally, fully, blissfully free. Some say I should have simply let it go, that family is family and I could have handled it quietly. To them I say this: when someone sexually assaults your spouse at your wedding and your family defends them while attacking you, you've already run out of reasonable options. Sometimes the only way to win is to walk away. For the first time in my life, I chose myself, and it was the best choice I ever made. Update: 3 months later, people kept asking for an update, so here it is. Chloe completed her community service, but broke probation by trying to contact Marcus at his office. She was sentenced to 6 months in jail and was only released last week. The so-called golden child did not fare well behind bars. My parents have made repeated attempts to reach me through mutual acquaintances, but I've made it clear I'm not interested in reconciliation. They even tried showing up at my cousin Leah's birthday party, knowing I'd be there. I walked out, and Leah kicked them out soon after. Later she told me they spent the entire time begging others to talk sense into Amelia. The most satisfying update? Chloe tried setting up a GoFundMe for legal fees and to get back on her feet. It raised exactly $0. Even her enabling parents didn't donate publicly, knowing it would be humiliating. As for us, Marcus and I are house hunting again. We're expecting our first child this spring. When people ask if I'll reach out to my family about the baby, I simply smile and say, our child will only know family who understand what respect means. Some bridges are worth burning if they lead to toxic places. To anyone in a similar position, you deserve better. You don't have to tolerate abuse just because it comes from relatives. Choose yourself. Choose peace. Choose dignity. That's the greatest revenge.